Hello YouTube, it's DasGregor, and Happy New Year! Wearing my festive shirt for the new year. So today's January 1st, and it's time for a new start. I can't promise how many videos I'll be able to do this year. Hopefully a lot. But let's get started with the one thing that a lot of people have talked about. Kernel upgrades. So what I have started to do, and as you notice, I'm still running i3. I'm really enjoying it. You know, it's very minimal, easy to work with, but nice nonetheless. So let's go into here, and what I have done so far is just done an emerge sync. You can see my last command there, and let's make this a little bit bigger so everybody can see things a little bit better. So that's all I've done so far is an emerge sync. So one of the first things I want to do, since this is a new update, is we want to go ahead and do an AVUND world, and I like to use the width dash bdeps equals y. Now what that means, A for ask, V for verbose, U for update, capital N for new use, and capital D for going deep. Now we'll see how many updates. And I have not done an update on this since the whole profile 17 change. So everything is new as of whenever I did that a couple weeks ago. And that was pretty nasty. It does look like there is one news article that we can look at, and we'll take a look at that in just a second while that calculates the dependencies. Now while that calculates the dependencies, let's talk about the kernel. The kernel is not something to fear. The kernel is very simple, and there's some great resources on the internet for Gentoo in compiling and setting up the kernel. In fact, I was just reading the newest wiki for the Gentoo kernel, and I'm impressed. You know, I've always used make menu config, which is an in-curses menu system for the command line interface. It's probably the one that you will most likely be familiar with. It is the one that most people probably use on a regular basis. However, there is make xconfig and make gconfig. One uses Qt5, I believe, and the other one uses GDK3. Each of them are quite different, and we'll take a quick look at those in just a second here, and then we will get on with everything. And while this does its calculating dependencies, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here to go ahead and let that go on, so that you're not just sitting here listening to me blow smoke. Okay, it looks like there was a lot going on in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks with Gentoo. It looks like I've got a lot of packages to worry about. So one of the first things you want to do whenever you are doing an emerged world is just go through and look to make sure that there isn't something out of the ordinary or something messed up with your packages. And so we start here at the top with the ones in bold, such as Python exec, VirtualBox additions. Those are actual packages that you find inside of your world that you have told specifically that you wanted to emerge those packages. These that are in standard font, they're dependencies of packages that need to be installed so that the ones in bold will run without issue. That gives you just a simple, quick rundown on that. Now, everything you see over here, this portion, this is what verbose gives you. This is telling you the version that you have, what it's going to, and then, of course, all your use flags that are default, new, etc. If they're new, they would be in green. If they're being removed, they are in blue. And if they are the same as they always were before, they'll just be in red, such as these right here. Now, I'm not too concerned about most of this, and most of this is going to go through pretty well, but you're going to notice, well, that's interesting, they're actually installing Gentoo sources 4972 on there. As you notice, I still have 443 and 4421, and I've got 41212 on that list. And we go through a little bit more, a few more options here and there. Looks like a lot of media fonts for some reason are being updated. Must have done something to those media fonts. Well, that's good. Media fonts will be super easy to go through. Nothing else looks too much out of the ordinary, but what's kind of scary is when we get down here towards the bottom, and I will show you this real quick because everybody is going to run into these kind of problems eventually. Yeah, nothing. Oh, man, look at this list. This list is crazy. I might not be able to get to the kernel anytime soon. All this a lot of things being when you see this R, that means it's being pulled back in to be recompiled due to issues. When you see the U, it means it's being updated. The NS, like right here, is for a new slot, which means that it's a new version of PHP, but because you might need older versions, it creates a new slot for that so that you can have them running side by side. Just some things to think about and understand how that works. There's so much. So I have 161 packages, 130 upgrades, 5 new packages, 5 that are in new slots, 21 that need to be rebuilt, and 2 uninstalls, which means that it has to remove a few things. So looks like libopenshot has something going on, and FreeRDP. It also says that some things have been skipped due to dependency conflicts. Now, if something's been skipped due to dependency conflicts, you don't really have to worry about that one so much right now. What's more importantly is it's explaining why some things are getting caused to be rebuilt, and it explains that, but this is what's more important. The following install packages are masked. Amarok 2.8. Well, I like Amarok. Now, I'm running i3, but KDE and Plasma has always been my go-to for so many years, going all the way back to the KDE 3.x days. And I still am running a full KDE desktop in the background. I haven't even started it in 6 to 8 months. But when Irish Luck challenged me to try something new with i3, I left it there just in case I needed a backup to go back to, because i3 was so foreign at the time. Now I've been really happy with i3, and like I said, I haven't gone back to KDE in a long time. So it's saying here that Amarok is being masked. Sometimes it explains why, like right here, it depends on a KDE lib4 qt4 unmaintained, because they're getting rid of all the KDE 4 stuff. Well, that makes sense. So what we're going to do, it's giving, oh, that's interesting. It's absolutely just going away. Normally there's a newer version of something that will replace or take that spot. So they're giving us some possible alternatives. They're saying that we can look at Cantata or Tomahawk. Well, that's sad to see Amarok go away. I enjoyed Amarok, but I hardly ever use it. So one of the first things I want to do is we're going to go ahead and say no to merging those packages for now. And I want to get rid of Amarok. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do an emerge-c, and we're going to go ahead and do Amarok, except without the caps on there. And I always like to do a -p the first time I do a -c, and the reason is -p means to pretend to do what I'm asking it to do. Sometimes, for instance, if you do a dep clean of all your packages, you always want to make sure you do a -p to pretend, just to make sure that there isn't something scary that it's going to pull in to get rid of, and something is in the background that you just don't realize. So always do a -p the first time when you're running that, because you do not want to uninstall applications and then realize on your next boot, which that might be a day later, 3 days later, it might be a month later, that something's broken and you don't understand why, because you've forgotten what you undid a while back. So that's just going to remove Amarok, so we can go ahead and do that. It's going to give you 5 seconds to think about, do you really want to do this? And then it's going to go on and take care of getting rid of it. that is your spot to hit Control C and get out of it if you realize that that is not something you want to do. I blew up my system one time, and that is because I had a dependency conflict with a program that was a major player with how GCC works. And I did an emerge-c, and it came up and said, "Are you sure you want to do this? This could break your system." And I said, I know what I'm doing. I'm DasGregor. And I bricked my system. I was like, Oh my goodness, let me tell you. When you break GCC on a source-based computer and you can no longer compile the program you need so that everything else will work, you're kind of hosed. So luckily, I was able to go into either a different version of Gentoo, because I've got a couple different partitions on here with different stages of Gentoo for testing and things. I was able to build the package that I needed inside of there and then set up that package as a bin package, import it into the Gentoo build I was working with, and install it as a bin, and then fix my issues so that I could go on. But just as a word of warning, always make sure you're paying attention to those warnings. So let's go back there real quick. And we might as well take a note now that we've gotten rid of that to take a quick look at our news article, eSelect News List, just to see what all is there. And it looks like there are some experimental AMD 64 17.1 profiles being set up for testing. And we want to read these things. You can do eSelect News, and you can do it one of two ways. You can either choose 25 or read 25, or you could say read new, and it would just type out all of the new articles. So we just want to read number 25. And we'll have to go up a little bit. Looks like it's a long article. And it's talking about those profiles and what it's doing. And honestly, I don't think it's anything that too many people would have to worry about unless you're working with testing type packages and those new profiles. So it's nothing we need to deal with right now. What I am going to do next is go ahead and allow for the system to do the emerge. Get back in there, set that back up, and I'm going to allow it to do this real quick. And we're going to go through this, and I will come back when all those packages have been updated and installed, and we will move on to the next step of this video. This video may take me all day, but I will see what I can do to get her done for you. Thanks a lot. I'm going to pause the video for now, and we'll talk to you in just a second for you. And we're still compiling, but we've made it almost to package 100 of 161. I just wanted to mention, have you ever just watched your source compile? It's so soothing. It's just nice to just watch it just kind of flow across the screen. Oh, so much to compile just for a simple update. We'll be back soon when this is all over, and hopefully we can continue on with the kernel. Thanks, guys. Oh, wait. Hey! Did this stuff finally get done compiling? Oh, man. Let's go to that screen and see where we're at. That took forever, I think. Oh, 228 minutes for 161 packages. That's, what, 3 hours, 48 minutes? Wow. But it looks like everything completed successfully and everything is done. It does look like there are some configuration changes. Now, I'm old school when I work on my configuration changes. I still use etc update to do that. So that's one of the first things we're going to want to do. Now, always be careful when you're doing an etc update. You don't always want to accept what it wants you to do. Always review. So we're going to hit 1 to look at the MPD, because I can guarantee you, I have my mpd.conf configured proper. I'm not going to want to change anything, but we'll take a quick look at it anyway. And you'll see it wants to undo a whole bunch of my important stuff and screw it up. And that's one thing you definitely do not want to do. I use MPD for my old time radio catalog stuff. And it wants to, if I followed these, it would undo that down here. It would mess it all up. It would change how I have my audio outputs all set up. So you always want to be really careful when there is a configuration file that if it's something you've customized to the way you want it, you may not want to do anything with that. So it looks like it wants to just screw up a lot of stuff here, and that is one thing we do not want to do. It's taking out a lot of my configurations and things, so we're going to go ahead and get out of that, and we're going to tell it delete the update number 2 and keep the original as is. And yes, remove that. Ugh, something's going to destroy me if I wasn't careful. Now, after you've done a world update as large as this was, you want to run it one more time just to make sure that everything is good and there's nothing that's sitting there waiting that it finds. And then we want to do a dep clean. Now, as you see at the beginning of this down here, I actually have included the time function. That's what tells me up here how long did it really take to run that command. So I'm going to go ahead and run this command one more time. We're going to let this thing kind of go through, and while it does that, I'm going to change gears. This video has gotten to be pretty long just talking about doing a portage update. So this is what I want to do this video. This video is going to be, it's a new year and it's important to update your Gentoo. So as a new year, first of the year, let's all just update our portage, do an emerge world, fix everything up, and make sure we're running with the latest and greatest of everything. And I'll go through and kind of explain a few more things. We'll wrap this up, and maybe the next day or so I'll do another video and talk about kernel updates and separate that out, because I had this whole thing set up about talking to you about that, and we're already running into 15 minutes just as it is now. So let's just take a quick look here how we're doing. It's still calculating. I'm going to pause one more time while we wait for that to finish calculating its dependencies. But if all goes well, it should show us that we have no packages to update. So be back in a second. Okay, and we see that we still have that issue with ImageMagick. Now, this isn't something that you need to really be that concerned about at this point in time. What it's telling you is that there's an update for it, but it's been skipped because there's a dependency conflict. Now, a lot of times you can fix those dependency conflicts by removing the offending package like ImageMagick and then recompiling the offending package such as libopenshot so that it will grab the latest version of ImageMagick and go ahead and get that to work with it. Another thing that I want to mention, and I kind of overlooked this, there are all of these things up here. These are preserved libraries that may or may not be giving us some trouble. I already recompiled Mesa once, but for some reason there are some issues with Mesa, and it looks like that might need to be redone again. So one of the things that when you see these, there's a real handy feature that's right here that says emerge at preserved rebuild, and we're going to run that real quick as well, and then we're going to see about fixing that other issue. If I can select this thing, silly here. Control-Shift-C, Control-Shift-V. We're going to run that, let it go through its thing, and when it comes back, we will, oh good, well, it wants to redo Mesa. That's a small package that'll take a few moments. So we'll pause it while it does that and get her done and get her fixed up, and then we'll move on to see if we can fix that image magic issue. So we'll talk to you in just a few seconds. And now Mesa's completed. It took about 6 or so minutes. So we're going to run that emerge one more time just so we can see that information about image magic. Once that comes up, we'll start trying to do a few things to repair that. Be back in another second. Okay, so we have this issue, and like I said, you could ignore this and eventually it will clear itself up on its own a lot of times, but we're going to see what we can do to clear it up or help it get cleared up. Whenever you start to remove packages that are dependencies for other packages, just take note in case you have to install them because you break a lot of things. And don't be afraid if you see a whole bunch of other things that get broken because you take away one dependency. One of the things I'm going to start with here is we're going to do a -C, and we're going to go ahead and remove image magic. Now, that's going to cause some problems, and it's probably going to break a few things, and that's okay, because we're going to put it back. You see how immediately it says we have some problems and that there are some packages that need to compile against it, like RSS GLX, DVD author. Let's see, there's some other things here, lib openshot, and that looks like just it, just lib openshot, RSS GLX. Now, if we just try to do an emerge, we'll just say an AVP 1, well, I'm not going to, you don't want to use A and P at the same time. P is for pretend. So we're just going to try that first. And we're going to do an image magic, and we're going to see what it will try to do. I want to know if it will try to pull back in 6.9 or if it will go ahead and install 707, the latest that we have there. So we'll let it run its little dependency check here, and it's going to pull in 7.0, which is what it didn't want to do before because of the dependencies. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow that to do that, and since I don't know if it's something we need or if it's just a dependency, we're going to add the 1. We're going to take out the P, and so we're going to leave it with verbose and 1 for one time, and we're going to let that pull in. Now that's going to download the latest version of image magic. It's going to install this. Now most likely after it installs, we're going to still have some dependency issues that we're going to have to look at, and we're going to have to probably recompile RSS GLX and OpenShot. So we will let this go through. I will pause the video once again so that you don't have to stare at code just going across the screen, and that will help try to keep this below an 1.5-hour video. Be right back. Okay, it's compiled everything proper, and as you see, we still have these preserved library dependencies that are mucked up, that it's looking at 6.9 still. Now what I want to see is if we do an app preserved rebuild, will it try to downgrade the image magic, or will it try to recompile it against the new version? So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this command, we're going to copy it and paste it, but we're going to do a -P at the end of it to tell it just to pretend to do it, because I want to see what it wants to do. Because I don't really want it to downgrade it again. I want it to keep at the version that we're using that's the most current. So you see it wants to downgrade it back to 6.99. Now we know that it was saying that it required it for libopenshot. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to repair or redo the libopenshot without doing this just right here. So what I'm going to try to do here is an emerge-c. We're going to do libopenshot to remove that. We're going to try to do an emerge-av libopenshot, and we're going to do 1 on that libopenshot. See what it'll do. See if it still wants to downgrade ImageMagick. Sometimes a package will look at that and it'll be really persnickety, like this one here is persnickety. It still wants to downgrade it. It means that libopenshot probably just does not support the newest version of ImageMagick. So let's take a quick look at OpenShot there. That is in user portage media libs libopenshot. And it's installing 0.18, and unfortunately that is the latest version. Sometimes you will find that there is a newer version that's masked, it's just not quite fully tested, and that you could use that for. So we're at a spot right now where I don't think I can upgrade ImageMagick because of OpenShot. That's too bad. I don't know. I'm looking at the use flags for OpenShot, and it doesn't. I could take it away. I could remove the use flag for it. I'm curious if I did that. Let's see. This should do that. Minus ImageMagick. Emerge-av1 libopenshot. There we go. It will rebuild it without ImageMagick, which I want to try to do first. I don't use OpenShot that often right now anyway, so I don't mind trying out this testing to see what happens. Because I'm curious too if those other applications will require it to be downgraded. Now if there's more than one application that will require it to be downgraded, then I'll undo my removal of ImageMagick for libopenshot, and I'll just let it downgrade, and we'll leave it at that until it all gets upgraded. So we're just about done. It goes pretty fast. %. Come on, show me 100% here. There we go. We'll still, of course, see those dependency conflict issues because of RSS. So what we'll do with that is we will try to do another pretend, because I want to see if those are also going to try to downgrade. Yeah, those won't downgrade it. So we're going to go ahead and allow that to do this. It will upgrade that to the newest version, and we will have to make a note that when OpenShot gets upgraded, who knows when, that we could then go ahead and add or let it redo its use flag so that it can include ImageMagick. But that will resolve that problem, allow for all the packages to be updated and using the latest version so that we don't end up with errors. And after this is done, there is one more step to go through, and that is doing the dep clean. It's something that you want to be very careful when doing because you don't want to accidentally delete things that are important. And that is something that it will talk to you about in just a second in the comments when you do a dep clean to look at. So, no errors, so we do the emerge. Now, by the way, before I started all of this, I did go ahead and just log in as root so that I don't have to deal with the sudo commands everywhere. Always make sure that when you're done, and that's why my Gentoo env over here is in red to remind me that I'm in root and not in my user account. So you want to do a dep clean and a -p. Always do a -p. Now see here, if you find packages that you don't want it to undo, for instance, specific versions of the kernel, etc., you can do that emerge -- no replace and the name of that package, and it will not remove that. Now, if we look at this, it wants to remove KDE base KIO slaves. Now, that's an older version, and that's okay. Looks like we no longer need the Qt script generator, and that's okay. It wants to remove the Gentoo sources 4.12.12. Now, I'm using 4.12.12, and this is a good example of why you need to make sure you're taking care of that. So what we want to do here is we do not want it to take that away. So that's one thing we need to change. It's okay to get rid of taglib extras and clang runtime because it's been updated to 4.01. PHP because it's going from 7.0 to 7.1, that's fine. Packaging is okay, Python KDE, and KDialog. All that looks okay, but what we want to do is what it set up here, emerge -- no replace, emerge -- no replace equals, and we don't want it to get rid of Gentoo -sources -4.12.12. And that's interesting because it looks like there's no backporting for security fixes. So that might be a good reason why in the next couple days I should go ahead and consider changing out the kernel and doing that one more time. But for now, that will protect us so that I can keep my kernel sources. We will now run the dep clean -p again, and you should see that that is no longer in the area for it to remove. That's interesting because when I did my kernel upgrade a couple weeks ago, I just allowed it to use whatever I thought was supposed to be the latest and greatest stable. And if we look at all of this, it looks like we are good to go. There's nothing scary that's there. We'll go ahead and do the dep clean. And that will then go ahead and remove those packages that we no longer need. And once again, it gives you that 5-second countdown. So just in case you're like, oh no, don't do that. Wait, stop. So we'll let that go on through. It goes pretty quick. So you know that if you don't do it right in those first 5 seconds, you may not have the opportunity to hit Control-C before you might hose something up. But just remember, as long as you don't reboot, you could always reinstall it if you know what package you did not want to have put there, as long as the Atom is still available for you to download. And of course, you still have a lot of your source packages. That's very useful to keep those before you know you really can get rid of them. So it's finishing up this little bit here. We should be done in just a second. Ah, fooled me. There we go. Now, a couple of things to always do that I like to do when I'm done is run revdep rebuild. And if you like the old script, add the .sh. And what that will do is that will just kind of one more sanity check. It'll look to see if there are any broken dependencies and things that might need to be rebuilt so that everything works before you forget. You go a couple weeks and reboot and nothing happens, or something breaks and something like that goes on. So we're going to let that run for a little bit. I'm going to pause the video so that it can do that, so you don't have to stare at a very slow moving progress bar. And we'll be right back. And we're back. And it looks like everything looks good. Dynamic linking and the system is consistent. Now you ask, DasGregor, by removing the image magic from libopenshot, what did you just remove in regards to functionality to that? Well, there's a good command that you can check called equery, and we can do an equery u libopenshot, and that will tell us what those use flags do. So it enables the optional support for the image magic or graphics magic image converter. Now, as you can see, it is still set in one area, but unset in another area because I did a manual use change when I did that package update. And the next time it installs, it will try to add it back in. Therefore, the next time that libopenshot gets updated, hopefully to 0.19 possibly, hopefully it will support the newest image magic. It will go ahead on the portage update. Just go ahead and upgrade and re-enable image magic. Now, if I wanted to set that permanently so it would be always ignored, then I would want to add that minus image magic to my use flag file. And that is a totally new topic for some another day. So if it's morning, evening, noon, or night, hopefully you enjoyed DasGregor's portage update for the new year. Everybody should do this at least once a month, twice a month if you don't want to wait for hours for it to complete. Some people do their portage updates once a week. I find that that's not really that necessary. When it's something that you try and it breaks, give it a day or two and try another sync and try again. Don't get discouraged and don't get stuck trying to fix one thing if it's just one thing. Because a lot of times you catch the portage updates in midstream, and sometimes it's just a matter that it needs to be updated the next day or so, and then you're good to go. So again, as I say, morning, evening, noon, or night, let me switch to my screen. Whatever you're having, enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Here's to 2018. Hopefully it's a good year for Linux and everything open source. Bye, guys.